What if I told you that a single scientific paper published quietly in 2003 was powerful enough to divide the global climate science community? What if I told you that one scientist stood up and said something almost unthinkable? The sun, not humans, may be driving Earth's climate. And what if I told you that this claim didn't just spark debate, it turned him into one of the most controversial scientists of our time? Today, you are not watching a normal video. Today, you are stepping into one of the biggest scientific battles of the 21st century. This is the story of Dr. Willie Soon and the paper that changed everything. My name is Willie Soon. I am an astrophysicist. Dr. Willie Soon was not trained as a politician. He was not a media personality. He wasn't even a climate activist. He was a scientist, an astrophysicist who studied stars, solar radiation, and how energy from the sun interacts with planets including Earth. For years, Dr. Soon worked as a researcher at the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, one of the most respected scientific institutions in the world. His work focused on a simple but profound question. How much control does the sun have over Earth's climate? It sounds harmless, even logical. After all, without the sun, Earth would be a frozen, lifeless rock. But the deeper Dr. Soon went into the data, the more uncomfortable his conclusions became. To understand why Dr. Soon's work caused such outrage, we need to understand the scientific atmosphere before 2003. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, a powerful consensus was forming. The message was clear. The Earth is warming. Humans are responsible. Carbon dioxide is the main driver. Fossil fuels are the villain. Governments were responding. International agreements were being drafted. Media outlets were amplifying the message. The science many believed was settled. But science does not move forward by consensus. Science moves forward by questioning. And Dr. Soon was asking a question that few wanted to hear. Dr. Willie Soon asked, what if climate change did not begin with factories, but with the sun? What if Earth's climate has always changed, long before cars, coal plants, and smokestacks? What if solar activity fluctuates more than we assume? What if natural forces play a larger role than current models suggest? These questions did not deny human influence, but they challenged the scale of it. And challenging the scale meant challenging policy, funding, and global narratives. To answer these questions, Dr. Soon needed one thing. In 2003, Dr. Willie Soon and researcher Sallie Baliunas published a paper titled Proxy Climatic and Environmental Changes of the Past 1,000 Years. This paper did not rely on computer models alone. It relied on physical records known as climate proxies. They examined tree rings, ice cores, coral growth, sediment layers, historical climate records. Their goal was ambitious. Reconstruct Earth's climate over the last 1,000 years. Not decades, not centuries, a millennium. And what they found would ignite a scientific firestorm. The paper suggested three explosive ideas. First, the 20th century may not have been the warmest period in the last 1,000 years. Second, Earth experienced significant natural warming periods long before industrialization, including the medieval warm period. Third, and most controversial, solar activity showed a strong correlation with temperature changes. The implication was clear. Climate change is not new. Natural variability exists, and the sun may play a much larger role than acknowledged. Dr. Soon never said humans had no effect, but that distinction was lost in the reaction. The response was immediate and fierce. The data selection was too broad. Regional climate records were mixed with global trends. The conclusions were overstated. Some journals publicly distanced themselves from the paper. Editors faced pressure. Scientific organizations issued statements. Supporters, however, said something else. The questions were valid. Solar influence deserved deeper investigation. Debate is the foundation of science, but nuance doesn't survive headlines. Dr. Willie Soon was no longer a researcher. He was now labeled a skeptic, a contrarian, a problem. Media outlets simplify the story. Headlines read as if Dr. Soon had said, humans don't cause climate change. That was never his claim. Dr. Soon responded calmly. I never said humans have no effect. I said the sun's role has been underestimated. That single sentence divided the scientific world. Let me ask you something. If science stops questioning itself, is it still science? Should controversial research be silenced or debated openly? Because what happened next went far beyond academic disagreement. After the paper's publication, journals came under pressure. Funding sources were scrutinized. Personal attacks intensified. Dr. Soon's credibility was questioned. His motives were challenged. His career was put under a microscope. And yet, the core scientific question remained unanswered. What role does the sun really play in Earth's climate? Because in part 2, the controversy turns personal. If you enjoyed this information, like and comment and subscribe the channel. Now, by the mid-2000s, the debate around Dr. Willie Soon was no longer just scientific. It was no longer about charts, proxies, or solar cycles. It had become personal. What started as a disagreement over climate data slowly transformed into a public trial, where the question was no longer, is he right? But should he even be allowed to speak? Dr. Willie Soon had crossed an invisible line. In 2011, the story took a dramatic turn. Investigative journalists released reports claiming that Dr. Soon had received funding from organizations linked to the fossil fuel industry. Names were published. Dollar amounts were highlighted. Headlines exploded. The implication was clear. His science was bought. Critics argued that industry funding automatically invalidated his conclusions. But Dr. Soon pushed back. Calmly, firmly. He stated that funding supported research, logistics, equipment, data access, and publication costs, not scientific conclusions. He argued something many scientists quietly agree with. Money does not decide truth. Data does. Yet, in the court of public opinion, the verdict was already forming. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Much of modern science, including climate science, is funded by governments, corporations, and institutions with political and economic interests. But scrutiny is rarely equal. Some funding sources are considered acceptable. Others are treated as proof of corruption. The question became, why is skepticism treated differently? Depending on who asked the question, the debate has shifted. This was no longer about climate. It was about trust. One critical fact often gets lost in the noise. Dr. Soon's 2003 paper was criticized, but it was never proven fraudulent. No fabricated data. No fake sources. No mathematical deception. The disagreement was about interpretation, methodology, and scope. That's not scientific misconduct. That's scientific debate. Even today, mainstream climate reports acknowledge natural climate variability, historical warm periods, solar influence on climate. The disagreement has always been about magnitude, not existence. Dr. Soon continued to argue that solar variability is more complex than climate models suggest. The sun is not constant. It changes in solar cycles, magnetic activity, radiation output. Small changes over long periods can have large effects. He argued that climate models often simplify solar influence while amplifying greenhouse gas effects. This doesn't mean humans have no impact. It means the system is more complex than a single variable. Complexity, however, is difficult to communicate, especially in politics. For Dr. Willie Soon, the consequences were real. His reputation was damaged. Invitations disappeared. His name became radioactive in academic circles. Young scientists were quietly warned, don't follow this path. Not because the questions were invalid, but because they were dangerous to careers. Science had developed red lines, and crossing them came at a cost. This story is not about whether Dr. Willie Soon is right or wrong. It's about something far more important. It's about whether science allows uncomfortable questions. Because history tells us something powerful. Science advances through dissent. Consensus is often temporary. Questioning authority drives discovery. At one time, Questioning geocentrism was dangerous. At one time, questioning plate tectonics was mocked. Progress is rarely polite. Today, climate science influences global policy, energy markets, taxes, regulations, everyday life. When science becomes this powerful, the pressure to protect a single narrative increases. And that is when science becomes vulnerable, not to skepticism, but to dogma. Dr. Willie Soon never claimed certainty. He never claimed to have all the answers. His position has always been simple. Climate is complex. The sun matters. And debate must remain open. That's not denial. That's scientific humility. You don't have to agree with Dr. Willie Soon. But ask yourself, if a scientist is attacked for asking questions, what questions will never be asked again? And what discoveries might we lose? Because they were politically inconvenient? This is not the story of a hero. And it's not the story of a villain. It's the story of a scientist who challenged a powerful consensus and paid the price. Because in the end, science doesn't collapse when it's questioned. It collapses when questioning becomes forbidden.